Welcome to the Come Up Starter Kit, guys. My name is Shankar and I have a very special guest with me today, Kellie Brown. Kellie is a series producer at ITV Australia for The Voice Australia. Today I brought on Kellie to give us a bit of an insight about her career journey, as she has had a colourful career and has transitioned into a variety of roles throughout. Kellie has had an exciting career and she's also been involved in spearheading social productions, launching some of the biggest TV shows in the world into Australian market, including Game of Thrones, Big Little Lies and Walking Dead, as well as producing bespoke content. Thank you, Kellie, for finding the time.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to jump right into it. Let's give the people a bit of an introduction, who is Kellie Brown in 3 words and what do you do for work?
3 words. I talk too much to have 3 words. Let's say storyteller, passionate, and a little bit crazy.
I like that. I like that. And what do you do for work?
Well, at the moment, I've just wrapped up as the series producer for digital and social for The Voice, which was really exciting role, really lucky role to have during these, uncertain times with COVID and all the craziness that's happened. It was a great role, I guess, an eye-opening role to keep on doing production through COVID. And what that meant and the impact that it had, because it's had an impact on every industry and every workforce, and the way in which ITV Studios and Channel 9 adapted to these changes was just phenomenal. And to be part of that team and to be part of pushing through such uncertain times and bringing people, it sounds really cliche, but bringing people joy or bringing music to people or some sort of creativity, it actually felt really good to be like, okay, I'm pushing through this, but I'm bringing something of joy to Australians. And music, what a better thing, and I love we went this whole cliche of like, not even COVID can stop the music. And I enjoyed being able to do that during this time, and people getting so involved and people telling their stories and talking about, their backgrounds and what led them to here, but also too, just being really authentic and sharing how COVID's affected them, because I think we can all relate, in some way with how this pandemic has affected everyone.
Sure. Okay, very cool. All right, so I wanted to give the people a little bit about your journey and really understand, because you've had so many different roles, and I think that a lot of people would love to hear about it. What was your very first job?
My very first job,
yeah,
straight out of school, was at Ernst & Young.
Okay.
So I went in there as like a team assistant, straight fresh from school. From school, I wanted to get into PR and marketing and communications. Actually, first of all, I wanted to be an actress, realized that wasn't going to happen. So I decided to be a PA. And really quickly into that role, I was really, really fortunate enough to have a really strong female leader just come to me and go, like, it's not that you're not doing your job well, but this is not you. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what is your passion? What do you want to do? And I just said, I just like telling stories. I just like communicating. I like hearing stories. And so she's like, right, well, while you're working here, we're going to put you through a comms degree.
Right.
So I was super, 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 super fortunate to have such an amazing mentor and see something in me. And whilst I was working full time, the company were paying for me to do my comms degree.
Right.
And then I majored, I think I got a year and a half into it, and I majored in event management and PR. And so then as soon as I got that job, I was super lucky to be moved into a marketing coordinator role, which doesn't happen. And I feel bad to be like, oh, this just happened, because it doesn't. People finish uni or finish college and you don't just get handed a marketing co-ord role. I just honestly happened to be in the right place at the right time. And it was like, let's just slip her in there. So that was, a really great start. And then after my results, and how your results and things go on the newspapers, I don't even know how it happened actually. I got a phone call from a not-for-profit company called Apex, and they asked me to come on board as their national marketing and events manager. And I'm like, hold up, just became a marketing co-ord and now they want me to be a manager? Where do I sign? So I was so thankful, and I still am to this day, to Ernst & Young really for giving me that opportunity. And to be honest, that leader, that partner that invested in me, I'm still good friends with to this day.
Right.
And she's still one of my biggest mentors. Like, I'll always call her and be like, I won't say her name, but I'll be like, oh, what do I do? You know, I made a joke of like, I have that what would, you know,
on the
situation, because I was so fortunate to start, you know, my career with a really strong female lead and mentor, and that I've been able to keep until this point. So when I started working at Apex as a national marketing and events manager, and I had to get my whole head around not-for-profit and fundraising and how that works. Social media and digital wasn't a really massive thing then. I mean, I managed the website, but like they didn't have Facebook or anything like that really happening at the moment. So not ideal. Again, when I was talking to you earlier about how I just take opportunities, I ended up just traveling around Australia hosting events. So I did things like the Tamworth Country Music Festival. I did things in Esperance. I did things in like Wagga Wagga and Orange and every country town that you can think of. I was there with the groups of volunteers that raise money for so many amazing causes. And I was there with them fundraising and promoting and getting to see Australia, really. It was amazing 2 years to do that. And then all of a sudden I was like, hang on, I feel like I'm just living one big party and I'm just traveling from one place to one place. Like what do I want to do from here? And then this role I applied for with the New South Wales government was a project manager role that I'd done before, but it was a project manager role for New South Wales events. And so I was still very much on the trajectory that I want to be an event manager, because, you know, you're young and you don't have kids or any ties. You can be anywhere at any time. You can work weekends. And that's kind of, I guess, the passion in events is obviously putting them together, but you work weird hours and you work late night and it's not just events, every other sort of thing comes into it. And so I took on this role, and I was the youngest person in the office, I think, by about 20 years, no, maybe about 15 years.
Wow.
So, but I made some really great colleagues that I'm still friends with now. But I guess this is that point where I really challenged that whole question of like, but this is how we've always done it.
Yes.
But why? But this is how we've always done it. But why?
Yeah.
So I think I was that annoying person of like, but why?
Yeah.
So it was a very rigid in its sense of like, we do this event annually at this time and this minister cuts this and we've got these pinks, and but why? So I was super frustrating, too young, too excited with my constantly, but why? But give me. So I pushed some boundaries of some things, and I did some really cool events. Worked on some really massive events with them. Worked on the World AIDS Conference, which was phenomenal. In that time I got married and I had a baby. So I kind of did all those things that you do in a really, I wouldn't say cushy government job, but in a job where, you know, I didn't have to do the crazy hours and I would pick and turn at pushing my buttons or like pushing people's buttons actually.
Right.
And then I moved on to a conference producer role at Melcrum, which was a content company. So basically their best practice for people that are in communications or internal communications, best practice in internal communications. And they do events with speakers from around the globe talking on best practice in comms and businesses and case studies and things. And the role that I took on there was a hybrid. So using my event management experience, but obviously my storytelling, content production type experience as well. So I was managing conferences and coming up with subject titles and approaching speakers to speak on certain topics, depending on what the conference was. But I was also putting together like best practice for those that were members of like going out and talking to people about case studies about how they did this or how that worked. And so it really extended my reach, to be honest, my network in the communications, PR, internal comms community, because I'm interviewing all these people and I'm talking to all these people and I'm doing all these events. And it was going great. It was, there was no reason why I left, except that, again, I had another really instrumental female lead, and she decided to move to Hong Kong and take me with her. So
how was that?
I think like the conversation was really crazy. I look back at it now and go, what the hell did you do, Kelly? But I think that we went to lunch and she was telling me that she was leaving. So I was sad. And then she's like, oh yeah, but you've got to come with me. And I was like, to Hong Kong? What? And so they sent me to Hong Kong for a week to like get my bearings. And of course I had a great time. I went with no children or husband and had a great time and said, sure, when do I sign up? I'm moving to Hong Kong. And so again, following, you know, I keep coming to this repetition of not every job you're going to find a great mentor or a great leader. In fact, you're going to have really bad leaders and they can give you just as much experience as the good ones.
Yes.
But I have been extremely fortunate in my career to have really great leaders. I mean, I've had some bad ones, but the ones that I've been able to hold on to have really opened up doors for me and worlds for me about myself professionally and personally that I can only ever thank them for. And so it sets me up to hopefully do the same, you know, and give back as I get older. But so again, it's about taking opportunity. You know, I had in my head that I was going to be an event manager or a comms person. Next minute, I'm moving to Hong Kong with my 2-year-old, and I'm starting up a business with this amazing woman who is like an absolute hurricane. I used to call her Hurricane Katrina. She is just so smart and empathetic and strategic, and you can do this, you can do that. And here I am finding myself traveling between Singapore and Hong Kong and setting up offices and organizing conferences and putting together training and putting together training workshops for people, you know, British American Tobacco and other companies, BASF, HSBC, Telstra, you know, and living and growing, I guess, in Hong Kong in this super, super, super fast-paced environment. But also learning cultural differences and, you know, different ways in which we communicate with what they call locals, and then, you know, having expat companies move in there. That was, you know, but picking up business acumen as well, like how to start up a business and market it and do all that sort of stuff. So after about 2 and a bit years of that, my little boy was old enough to start school, and so I decided to move home just for family and whatever reasons, and pretty much stepped straight into this role, into a role at Foxtel in a comms manager role. So sort of going onto the other side of the fence was weird after all this time being the like best practice, you know, best case scenario, telling people to all of a sudden being like, oh, I've got to listen to my own advice and do things that I said that you should do to, you know, put all that stuff into practice, I guess. But again, you know, very fortunate for that role. But really quickly on, I was like, you know, it's not exact. It just doesn't feel exactly what I want to do. Like I was great, you know, telling the Foxtel story and to do the people and culture stuff and to, you know, work as Foxtel's communication as a brand. But I think my heart was more in storytelling, but at a deeper level, like not that commercial, organizational level. And so I started to just do little things. So like I had my role, I did my role, but then I would just dabble in like, oh, I can shoot that, or I can film that, or you know, or like, oh, can I come to that media event and do a story, or like, can I go on the set of Wentworth and do something for da-da-da-da? So I slowly started to do these little extra things, and then slowly started to like get to know different people in departments. And then within about a year and a half, it sounds so like I've just been given everything on a platter, but I did work. I moved into a role in premium entertainment under again just these 2 really amazing men, the general manager of premium entertainment and the creative director at the time. And I, you know, this is kind of the point where I sort of talk about, you know, someone's passion and drive and thirst for something rather than what's on their paper, on their CV. So I would never have got this job if I applied from LinkedIn or from a recruiter or whatever, because I didn't have, you know, 3 to 5 plus years experience in television. I didn't know how all of that worked, but I had the comms background, which is versatile. I had the marketing background, but I also was just so passionate and thirsty and hungry, and willing to learn. And so coming into that role, you know, having those 2 great people to just teach me all the mechanics of television and how this works and how that works. And this is why we need this department and this is what this department does. And because I was so thirsty for it, I just found it all amazing. I felt like every day I was going to Disneyland. I was like, I work in TV, amazing. You know, oh my God, I'm in production. Like I just loved going to work. I not gone home. I was just, this is where I'm meant to be. I finally feel like this is what I'm meant to do. Like I just really felt it. And getting to work with those 2 and like pitching my ideas and my stories and them going, go for it. And I'm like, what do you mean? I can do that? All right. Okay. You know, doing different things. And I really enjoyed it. And then, which is no secret, Foxtel went through a massive restructure with the incoming of Netflix and other streaming companies, and they had to adapt their strategy. And so there was a lot of, unfortunately, redundancies and merging of teams. And so I was in the premium entertainment team, which is what you pay the extra money for. And they merged that with the entertainment team. So, and they asked me to head that digital and social team up. And so at first, I just didn't do well with change. And I was like, no, hang on.
Yeah.
I like what I'm doing. And I've got an idea for like, no, my trajectory is here. You can't just come in one day and tell me this is what I'm doing now. I don't even like those channels. I don't do reality. I do drama,
Yeah.
you know, and was very much like very change resistant, I guess. So I think the team picked up on that as well. I think that's really important as a leader, because I didn't want to be there or do it. They obviously too were like, who's this new person? I don't want you to be my leader. And it just didn't, you know, everyone was unhappy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So it took this leader of mine to go, right, I want you to go take a week off. And when you come back, I'm going to put you on this executive leadership training. And first thing that I thought was like, oh, what, now I'm not a good enough leader? Are you putting me on leadership training? And it wasn't until I spoke to a few other people that they're like, Kelly, you're looking at this all the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'd love to go on that course. He wants to invest in you so much, and the business wants to invest in you so much that they're sending you on executive leadership training.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. When you think, look at it that way. All right.
Yeah.
So, and I can't say enough how much this training just changed everything for me from personal and professional perspective. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about others. I learned so much about perceptions. I learned so much about boundaries and how, you know, I could project one thing and how you can receive it differently, and how important it is to be really authentic, but also keep boundaries up, you know, and keep, you know, protect yourself. It's okay to do that.
Right.
But also too, you know, like really small things, like, because I am such a passionate, loud, boisterous person, that then can actually affect other people to not speak up at the table because I'm intimidating. And or it comes across aggressive. And I remember getting so upset, being like, I'm not aggressive. I'm just passionate. But to learn that my passion can come across as aggression, or my assertiveness and my confidence can make other people feel like they can't talk at the table. And that's, you know, I don't want to be that person. So it was a lot to take, there was a lot of self-reflection. There was a lot of like crying happening in that room over the 18 months of like, oh, I'm an asshole. But the self-discovery and then applying those tools and watching them really work, like being in meetings and applying these simple basic tools and then watching things happen and work was just phenomenal. And next minute, and then I find myself promoted to a brand new role, which was created for me, which was head of production for social. And I can't thank that leader enough for making that role for me. He created that role because he's like, you're here to tell stories and you're great at what you do. You're great at production. You know, you're great at telling stories. You've had all this success with Wentworth and A Place to Call Home and Game of Thrones and, you know, all these other shows, but it's too big a role to then do the front end of the digital and social, you know, so I'm going to separate it. And I moved into the creative team. And I think at the time, he was very forward thinking in that, because I wouldn't even seen a role advertised as head of social production. Right. Like it just falls into marketing really. Whereas for Foxtel to have a dedicated role that was like showing that social and digital content was as important as any other content, as on-air content or digital pre-rolls or above the line, whatever, was a real investment in the value of social and it being a real machine of an extension of what the TV shows were. So whatever show we're making, Foxtel was that real extension of that, you know, taking people's voyeuristic tendencies and letting them see more about the show or behind the scenes and that was all caught up in the social production. And so I was getting to do what I love, you know, directing, producing, writing, but for a different audience, you know, but then working with the on-air audience just as much. Yeah. So I like decided this is where I want to be. Like, this is what I want to do. The producing side of things is just, that's it. Like, I love telling stories. I love taking an idea and seeing where I can pull it and move it to. I love the psychology behind, you know, how you can place different things and how it can bring out different emotions in different people in different ways. I love looking at the data at the back end of social and being like, why did that particular thing resonate so well and this one didn't? I like unpacking all of that. I like making people cry. Being drama. I'm like, if I make people cry or people's comment is like, oh my God, I'm like, yes, that's my job.
Yeah,
I like seeing that share button. You know, if people are willing to share something on their platform, it means that they're willing to put their brand against your brand. Like Facebook and social media and Instagram is all about your personal brand. The highest accolade that you can get is if someone, like, say you shared my video. I'm like, you're willing to put your brand personality against my video. So I hold shares in really high regard, because a lot of people will, like, I call them like social stalkers. They'll just stalk and be like, yeah, I've seen that. But they won't actually commit to liking it or engaging with it. So if someone shares your content or comments on your content, that's like, my job here is done. Mic drop. So it's all about data and that stuff as well. And then seeing how working on recurring TV shows like Wentworth, seeing how you can outdo yourself each season. Like, you think that you've done it so well, like, where will I go this season? Like, where will I take audiences? And then seeing this recurring audience coming back and coming back and coming back. And you know, the show's getting like 300,000 viewers, and all of a sudden your social media content's getting 3 million. You're like, this is crazy. This is next level. And so it drives you to do more. But I guess, you know, with all these changing times and things happening, and I'd done sort of 6 years at Foxtel, I decided it was time to, so lucky when you're employed by a broadcaster. It's like, here's this show, Kelly, here's this show, here's this show, here's this show. And you just get this silver platter of shows. Not everyone starts off this lucky. Normally you have to work show to show, and like, so I'm like, was always fearful to go out on my own and freelance. But I thought it was time to do that. Foxtel weren't making as many dramas. My role had moved into marketing, which is not where I wanted to be. I would much rather be in that production space. So I was like, if there's any time, it's now. Yeah. And I think I had summer off with my kids, and they were like, I love mum that doesn't work, because I've never not worked in my life. And they're like, do you have to get a job? I'm like, yeah, well, if you want me to buy things. And then I picked up Fremantle, which is the company that does Wentworth, that I worked with for many years, offered me a freelance contract. So, which was amazing, because I'd already worked with them, and it was like going from a family to a family. It wasn't like, you know, when you start, it was like the best way to start freelancing, because you went somewhere that you felt comfortable and knew. And they were working on the 35th birthday for Neighbours. So I came on board to help them with the content strategy for that, but also to just an overall kind of like clean up of their whole entire content strategy. They're so fortunate. Like, it's amazing, because everything's in one spot on that set. It's like you walk in and it's like, there's Carl's house. There's like, it's like a producer's dream, because you can be like, oh, I need to go pick up that shot. Hang on, just turn on the lights. Like, it's amazing, you know, and you've got all the cast there 24/7. It's like all contained. So the amount of content that you like could produce is limitless. Like, if you've got the ideas, you've got everything at your fingertips. It was just that their structure had gone through a number of changes, a number of different handlers, and they just kind of lost their way a little bit. So I sort of came in, and it was great to be able to go, okay, what's working really well? What's not working so well, and what can we work more on? And it was awesome to come in and bring a fresh perspective to such a like iconic show, Neighbours. Like, it was amazing. And I had the best time working on that and contributing to their 35th. And then during that time, basically I got the call up from The Voice and they offered me the series producer for digital and social role. And I've worked on realities. So I'd worked on like Real Housewives and some other reality shows. They're not my type of genre, only because I'm dramatic and I like drama. But I didn't feel that The Voice was the same. I felt like The Voice they're not actors, or they're not people that are trying to get famous because of Instagram, or like, not belittling maths or Bachelor in Paradise or whatever, but they're a type of Instagram famous person, and they're there for a reason. The people on The Voice are there because they have a talent, and the industry is so hard to crack, and they need this lift to move forward. So I love music as well, but I love the idea of when this particular leader had pitched the role to me, of being able to get these great stories out of these great people. Like, why are they here? What are they doing? What brought them to this point, and sharing those stories with Australia, but also too, I love music. So, you know, music is another form of storytelling. Yeah. And this particular leader that called me, I'd wanted to work with her for a really long time. She was quite like on my radar. So when I got the phone call from her, I was like, see you, neighbours, I'm out. I'm leaving Ramsay Street for the boys. And so it was really quick. I think I wrapped up on Neighbours. I finished my contract out and I started on The Voice the next week. And they were already filming the blinds. So it was like a baptism of fire, like straight in, you know, as you don't have time to get to know anyone, just like get in there, Kelly, and make it happen. And then COVID hit and screwed everyone's lives up. But it was great to work for such an amazing show that really, you know, went above and beyond to keep production going, and, you know, really explored every avenue to be able to keep the show going. And it might not have been the show that audiences expect or used to, but I hope that they could have appreciated how hard ITV and Channel 9 worked to continue through this time, because it was really difficult. And you know, just one example is having Kelly, George, and us in 3 different time zones at one time. Like the logistics to make that happen, you know, a next level, let alone actually having us all not like lip syncing and hearing each other and hearing the performance. And, you know, and then you've got the poor artists, they're singing to no one because we can't have an audience. Do you know how when you're performing, right, you feed off the audience, you feed off that instant gratification. Next minute you're hitting a high note and you can hear Delta going like, because there's no audience there. So everyone really, you know, from every angle of the production really pulled out, and it was such a great sense of camaraderie. And everyone was tired, everyone was exhausted, but everyone just had that focus and goal, and that was a great team to be part of. It was a great experience. I'm absolutely exhausted, but it was you know, again, an opportunity, and I took it. That's pretty much my crazy what's it called, employment history in a nutshell.
That is crazy career. Because you've had such a variety of roles, how were you able to sort of pivot like that throughout your roles? Was it networking? How did you go about doing that?
I'm not going to lie. Before all of this leadership training I did and experience that I had, I really struggled with change. I think that was my hardest thing. If I thought that, like, you know, if I had my people in a row and had like got comfortable and knew what I was doing and was good at what I was doing, because I like to succeed. As soon as someone threw a curveball, I'd be like, no, hang on, no, this might make me not succeed. Not, you know, or this is not where I see my career going. My career is very clear. And then it was after taking a few risks and a few things to go, okay, Kelly, look, it might not be going here, but it's going here. So just give it a crack. Just have a go and just see where it takes you. And I think in the long term, what I saw is that a lot of my side steps or pivots or whatever you want to call it were slowly going up, but my goal changed to where I wanted to be. And if I didn't take those side steps and pivots and adapted how I dealt with change and I dealt with being thrown a curveball or being thrown this way, then I wouldn't get to where I am now. So it's actually kind of like the lesson is that all of these curveballs and all these, every time we feel uncomfortable, right? One of my leaders once said to me, unless you feel uncomfortable, you're not growing. And I'll never forget him saying that to me. And I'm like, but why do I feel uncomfortable all the time? When do I not feel uncomfortable? So I always stuck onto that of being like, you know what, rather than looking at this as like, this is too hard, this is not what I want to be doing, be like, no, Kelly, it's uncomfortable because you're growing. It's uncomfortable because you're learning. It's uncomfortable because this is what you're meant to do. Nothing that you achieve is easy. You've got to work at it. And when you kind of then own that and go, okay, I've got to own this uncomfortableness, it's much easier to push through it.
On that, that's interesting, because what would be your top advice or your career advice, something like that you sort of just mentioned? Is that, what else would you sort of say?
Is that I think it's as much about, you know, don't block off opportunities for yourself. I mean, I just gave you a quick snapshot of what I've done. Bloop, 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 like, you know, and none of them were in my goal plan. None of them were like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, there's been things that I've said, you know, I'm not saying take every opportunity. There's been things that I'm like, no, that's not the right direction. But there's been things that I'm like, you know what, I'm pushed this way, so the universe must want me to do something. It doesn't mean that I couldn't have turned around and gone, no, this is the wrong way, and then aborted.
Yeah.
I just tried to, I guess, holistically look at every opportunity and go, okay, well, how do I learn from this? Or how do I benefit from this? Or the biggest one would be, you know, how do I create what I want from this? Say I've been forced into this job, or I've got this job description, but it's not what I want. Okay, well, how do I do that really well? But then how do I make opportunities for myself? Just like I did in that communications job to get into TV. I'm like, what are the opportunities? Where can I see them? Where can I pounce on them? So, you know, and in some roles, some people might go, well, there were none. And that could be very well true. But in the business that I was in, there were opportunities. I just had to run at them and grab them and really push hard for them. In other roles, sometimes it's actually been the opposite. It's been to pull back. It's been, Kelly, learn the word no, learn a boundary. Like stop saying yes to everything. Stop saying that you think that if you don't do everything, if you're not across everything, people aren't going to value you as much, or people aren't going to respect you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say I'm at my boundary. It's okay to say at my limit. What I'd find myself doing is I'd take it all on board, get ultra stressed, ultra like breakdown mode, and be like, I can't do this, and then look crazy. When really I should have had boundaries in the first place to go, we thought that, but you kept saying yes. And I think one of the fundamental things of someone that's that aspires to be their best or is a perfectionist or whatever, you think volume of work and you think saying no to someone or saying I can't do that or I'm not capacitive is a failure. I had to learn, it took me a long time to realize saying, even I struggle with it still actually, is saying no isn't seen as a failure. You put up boundaries. And if anything, it works out worse in the end if you say yes to everything and then have a breakdown. You know, mental health's equally important in this whole game and having a work-life balance. And that's something that I struggle with massively is knowing a work-life balance and keeping one. I think that's probably my worst thing that my one thing that I can't tackle or master is a work-life balance, really. I'm either full on in or I'm like, I need time with my kids. So I'm not great at the balance.
And for people that might not be aware of what a series producer does, what does a day of a life look like for you?
Well, so I'm a digital series producer rather than an actual series producer.
Yeah.
But they're very similar. So at the end of the day, the series producer basically comes up like just drives the storyline and the narrative. So you report into the executive producers and to the producers of like, this is the narrative and you drive the narrative. So you're doing all the interviewing with, let's use The Voice as an example. You're doing all the interviewing with the artists and with the coaches. You're finding what the storylines are and where the points are. You're finding like where the highlights are and behind the scenes, and you're setting an overall strategy for the season of like, okay, you know, after this and this episode, these are the best bits. And then we're going to do a backstory of this person. And then, we think that the audience are really involved in this person. So let's go do a deeper dive on this person. You might be filming and a moment happens because it is all like, it's not scripted. So perfect example is Guy hits his buzzer and turns around and gets a 13th man. And we're all like, what do we do with this? So we go in that moment, right, this is going to be a big headline. This is going to be a big story. Let's add it into the storyline. Let's get Guy's perception on what happened. Let's talk to the executive producer about what happened. Let's talk to the Wolf, the guy, what happened. And then you've got to think on your feet because you're like, when this goes to air, you know this is going to be a story. Right. So a lot of it happens on the fly, like what you see. A lot of it's you can pre-plan and you can pre-shoot. Yeah. And a lot of it is sometimes like, I'm just sitting there because as you can tell, I'm no wallflower and I'm just blah, 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 like talking to the artist or talking to the coach. And all of a sudden we go off on some tangent and then some gem of a story comes out and my video girl is still rolling. Right. And then I'm like, can I use that? That was really good because we're just chatting and organically like conversation comes out. Yeah. It's not based on these direct interview questions. All of a sudden we've discovered something else and I've gone, do you mind if we use that? They can say no, but you know, sometimes that happens. Or I don't know, sometimes I'll see a moment in the show and I was there when it was filmed and I didn't really register with me, maybe a million other things. And then I'm watching it on the screener links and I'm like, how did I not see this? Like, how did I not see this? This is like epic. We need to be all over this. And so then, you need to change your strategy because you're like, how did I not see that? So look, at the end of the day, I guess it's it's planning a content strategy, but it's just telling a story, a constant story.
Right.
And it's bringing people along on that story with you. So, you know, the great thing about social media is the amount of analytics. So all of a sudden I can say, oh, I'm so in love with that story and it really, really touched my heart. And then it got 3 likes and I'm like, okay, it only touched your heart. You know, that's maybe that along with someone else's. So, you know, you've got that constant reassurance of that you're hitting that mark each and every time. And, you know, you'd be a fool not to have that. That's one of the greatest things about social and digital is instant gratification. You get instant feedback. You don't get that in any really, like, I mean, the same as if you're a singer in a band, right? You get instant gratification from the audience. You're on Broadway, instant gratification. There's not many things in life where you get instant gratification. Social and digital is that. You put it up and you become obsessed. Like I'm checking it every 5 minutes. 3 likes, 30, you know, you get instant gratification. So it's also a tool to go, why am I not getting the likes or the video views or the impressions that I want? What didn't I do with this piece of content? Why isn't it hitting the mark? Why isn't it telling the story? Why isn't it resonating? And you can quickly change. Yeah, right. That's pretty much it, I think. I mean, you pretty much do everything. You just
it sounds like it. It's like it's a very robust sort of role where you're touching on all and you're speaking with a whole lot of departments as well.
Yeah, it's great though too because you get an insight in so many other departments and how hard they work, like lighting and sound, production, you know, wardrobe, hair and makeup. Like everyone works so hard on these shows. Everyone,
right.
Like it's like a little community. It's like a little family, and everyone's there for the common goal. Like it's a great. Everyone, it's a hustle.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, especially when you're filming days, like hustle days, but you're like, you're with everyone in the hustle, from the actors to the producers, to the scriptwriters, to the hair and makeup worker. We're all hustling on this day. So no one's really complaining like my hustle's worse than your hustle.
Yeah, right.
Hustle. And then you all kind of collapse at the end of the day and be like, woo, job done.
What do you find is the most sort of exciting or the most exciting aspect of the role?
For me, I love I love seeing the reactions of a piece of content.
Right.
So for instance, like if I've put so much into it, or like I've really worked hard at telling a story, or I'm really passionate about a piece, and you know, you go through the whole, like the planning, the shooting, the directing, the production piece, then getting it live, and it just smashes it. Like you know, it's got shares, it's got engagements, it's got impressions, it's got people commenting on it. You've got, you know, the highest accolade is, you know, whether even the talent is sharing it or something like that. It's like you've really touched someone. You've really got an emotion out of someone. And I think that's, you know, what a storyteller does. Is a storyteller is looking to engage someone and invoke emotion. Yeah. Whether that emotion's laughter or sadness or happiness or empathy, that's, as a storyteller, what you want to get. So if I'm invoking the right emotion that I intend, if I went with a drama and everyone was laughing, I might be concerned. Yeah, but if I'm invoking the right emotion from people and moving them and making them stop for a minute in their day, then that's what I do it all for.
Right.
Lame, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how, like, you have to.
I wish I could say I do it for the money, but there's no money in this game.
Yeah, right. It's all for the likes almost, right?
Yeah.
What do you find is the most challenging then?
The most challenging is that I don't think that in this industry or in any industry that there's no foreseen value in social and digital. Right. I just feel like sometimes it's the poor second cousin. It gets pushed into back corners. It gets like added on at the last minute. It's like, oh, can you just add this quickly on? Or can you just quickly post this? Or can you just quickly do that? And I think that there's not a good enough understanding or a clear enough understanding of the amount of work that goes in there. It's not as simple as just adding a post, you know, or just quickly grabbing this or quickly grabbing that. Like, we're working at capacity, and a lot of the time you don't see the budget either. So you're working, you know, you're trying to be really creative with resources as well as budget and everything that you're doing. And then when people quickly ask you these last minute things, you do feel like you have to say yes, because, you know, you want to be relevant and keep relevant and show your value, but they don't really sometimes understand how much work or pressure that goes in. And then you might not get to something else and they'll be like, why haven't you done this? And you're like, well, you know, how long's a piece of string? So I think that's kind of the most challenging thing for me and frustrating thing, because part of my personality is the yes, 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 yes. I'll take it all on and not say no. So the better I get at saying no, maybe the less frustrating that will be.
Okay, very good. And what would you say is a typical career progression for someone wanting to pursue what you have?
You know, you're seeing so many, it's so different now. Like, you're seeing so many younger people come into social and digital. Like, it sounds like, makes me sound so old, but literally when I started in social and digital, it didn't really exist.
Right.
Like, literally, there was MySpace still.
Yes.
You know, and there was no rules. There was no like best practice on Facebook or Instagram. Like, I remember starting the Instagram accounts for Foxtel for most of the channels, you know, with no strategy. I just went, oh, here's a name and here's a logo. Like, you wouldn't do that now, right? Before you launch an Instagram page, you're going to have a full-blown strategy. Here I am, just like, this looks good, let's go. Like, so I think the great thing about starting this career now is that there's lots of learnings and there's lots of best practice and there's lots of people that have already made so many mistakes before you. Whereas when I started, it was all, everyone was just kind of doing their own thing, and some things stuck to the wall and some things didn't. And there was no like rule book on what worked and what didn't. Like, some of the things that I posted 10 years ago, you'd look at them now and go, no company can post that. You know what I mean? Like, but there was no status quo. There was no benchmark.
Yeah.
So you know, you were just throwing things and hoping they stuck, essentially.
Right.
And we don't need to do that anymore. Like, with people entering this industry now, is that people have made those mistakes. There are best case scenarios. There are case studies to show you what works and what doesn't work. It is important to learn the back end and to learn all the statistics and data and how that works. I mean, you can go in so many different, you can go in a media buying perspective and you can be, you know, that data front end side of it, or you can go like me and be the creative side of it. There's more facets to it. It used to be just like, oh, you're in social media. And now it's like, well, oh, hey, I'm in social media production, or I'm in media buying and I do all the paid advertising. Oh, I'm in actual like posting and scheduling. I'm in more community, like, you know what I mean? That didn't exist like 5 years ago.
Right.
So the great thing about people wanting to pursue this is like, what part of it do you want to pursue? Because it's not just social media now, and there's not a whole lot of jobs where you have to holistically do all of those. Maybe for a smaller company, you know, a startup or whatever, the great thing is you've got to do all of those. But with bigger companies now, you've got lanes, and you're like, no, this is my forte. I might pick up and help this. You've got to have an understanding of this, but you've got choice now. The other thing though is that look at this world. Like, where are we going? We're going digital and social.
Yeah.
So where does the line blur when content all of a sudden doesn't mean that you're a content creator? How does that force you into being in social media? Because there's already TV shows that are launching on YouTube and Facebook, and does that make them any less of a TV show? Maybe it's more that the medium is changing rather than the industry, because all of a sudden people are making films and TV shows not just for TV or for streaming. They're making them for YouTube. They're making them for Foxtel for Facebook Watch. They're making them for Instagram TV. That's a specific audience. So I think that as we grow and evolve, you know, as a society, it's going to move and change. Like, is there going to be a differentiation between social media and digital and TV?
Right.
Or is it just going to be, this is content and here's the different ways in which you absorb it or you engage with it?
Yeah, nice.
Some people watch it on TV, some people watch it online.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to move. It means how it's going to evolve. I don't know that. But, you know, we've really moved to a dead hard 8:30 Tuesday time slot that you'd run home because if you miss it, you miss it, to, oh yeah, I'll just watch it on stream when I'm on the train. You know, that's how much we've moved in 15 years. So where are we going to move in another 15 years?
Okay. And you find, is there certain qualities that one must have, or are there certain traits that you find that really do well within this industry?
Relatability, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be passionate about it. Anything creative, you can't go into it half-hearted. That's why I'm saying, like, there's different roles in social media. If you're more the analytical and like to see results, and you're if you're a marketer that likes to be very clear on your benchmarks and see what you can do and set a goal and achieve it, then the media buying stat end is totally your jam. But if you're into storytelling and being emotive and getting people to like your content or to have viral content or engage people, then you've got to be a creative,
Yeah.
I think you see a lot of people doing it really well, and then you see a lot of people doing it really mediocre. And it all, I think, comes down to the passion. It comes down to, communication. Like, at the end of the day, I think the number one question you've got to ask yourself is, what do you want me to do with this content? Like, if I'm scrolling, why am I stopping my finger, and what do you want me to do? And sometimes people forget that. They get so excited and everything else, down to the basic principle is, the reason I'm making this content is because I want you to feel something, do something, click here, buy this. People forget that real basic rule of, like, I want you to stop and look at this to do. And I always ask my team that. Sometimes they come up with the greatest ideas and various things, and I'm like, hang on, can we just scale it all the way back?
Right.
What are we asking them to do? Because I'm not clear. So if I'm not clear with what I'm meant to do with this content, how are they meant to know what they're doing with this content? It's beautiful. It's phenomenal. It's all these things, but I don't know what I'm meant to do with it.
Yeah.
It's so basic, right?
Right.
And sometimes you get so caught up in everything else, and there's this happening here, and an explosion and a voiceover and, click here and all this stuff. And it's like, hang on, what am I doing again? I mean, it's great if it's just awareness. If you just want people to be aware of you, and that's the whole entire strategy, great. But a lot of the time, you look at content and you're like, why did I stop at that? Or what was I meant to do with that? And they'll scroll past.
Right.
And it kind of, if you lose them in the first go, then it's going to be really hard to retain them to get them to come back, because you're competing against your cousin Sarah, who just had a baby, someone's cute kitten, Bill just is posting photos from Hawaii at the sunset and you're jealous. Like, you're not just competing with other companies, you're competing with everything on social media. So to get that thumb stop is hard.
Yeah. Very cool. And what would you say is the biggest misconception within your industry?
How easy it is to just make something viral.
Yeah.
The amount of people that will be like, put it on social media and make it go viral. I'm like, if I knew how to make stuff go viral, I would not be working here, and I would be a millionaire, and I'd be working for myself. Like, I don't just go, oh, this is some viral content. If I knew the secret to viral content, look at the things in the world that have gone viral. You never pick them. Like, remember that mum with the Chewbacca mask?
Yes.
Like, I would never have thought that went viral. Like, if I could predict what went viral, the amount of times you've had, like, senior leaders or executives or people that just don't grasp social media and they're like, we need something that goes viral. I'm like, yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a misconception, but also too, how easy it is. I think people just think anyone can do social media. I don't need someone specialized to do it. I can run my own social media account and I can be successful. You know what? Maybe some of you can, but it's got a lot of strategy and a lot of experience behind it. And I think that's disrespectful to those in the industry that are working really, really hard, because if your job's social media, you're having to come up with new copy, new posts, new strategies all the time to keep it fresh and new and be on the trends. And it's devaluing to that person and to their level of strategy and creativity to say, oh, social media is so easy, anyone can do it.
Very, very true. And what would you say is your one piece of advice that you would tell your past self?
Oh, there's too many.
That's good though.
Look, the most one would be to believe in yourself.
True. Yeah.
I think I struggled so much with confidence, that I would question myself, that I would question my decisions. I would be so hard on myself. I would just automatically assume the worst, that I was wrong, that I'm annoying people, that I'm not showing my value, that I've got to work harder. And it would just be to believe in yourself and just know that you're enough. That would be my biggest.
I like that. I think that's for a lot of people would like to hear that. I like that. And lastly, what can we expect from yourself?
Sleep.
Very busy, eh?
6 months of like ridiculous hours sleep. No, actually, so because obviously, you know, I went freelance and then just got, you know, 2 jobs straight off the back. What I'm intending to do now is to really work on, you know, building that freelance up. So actually establishing my business and putting some time into that. I haven't even had a chance to, all I did was buy my business name. That's it. And then I got a job and then got a job.
Right.
So I'm excited to be able to work on that more and explore some opportunities that have come about. But look, not a lot of people are making TV at the moment. It's not just TV, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I just still want to be able to keep telling stories and doing what I do. So, you know, no story is too small or too big. So whether it's, you know, helping someone out with their socials or their website or their content story. Can you hear my daughter in the background? She's singing at full volume with no music behind her.
Good on her. Good on her.
Wreck mum life. I told her ages ago, I'm like, I'm going on the Zoom, do not talk. She's gone in the other room and she's singing at the top of her lungs.
Good on her.
Yeah, and just working on that for now, I think, and seeing what opportunities, what comes up next.
Okay. And how can people get in touch with yourself?
With me, so LinkedIn, my Instagram. So do you put them on your?
Yeah. I'll check that all up there.
LinkedIn and Instagram is probably the best. Yeah.
Done. Perfect. Thank you so much, Kelly.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. Is this the longest one you've ever had? Where you're like, oh,
this is a lot of golden nuggets, which is good. And I think so many people are going to just, they've come from sort of a traditional, you know, corporate background, and to hear what you have to share, you know, it's going to change so many people, which is awesome.
Good. I hope that's the thing, you know, like I said, find a mentor, stick to them, you know, and you might have some bad eggs in there, but when you've got a good egg that has your best interests at heart, you know, you can see the smoke in the mirror, you know, what's it called? Yeah, the smoke and mirrors, and who intentionally wants to see succeed and who doesn't. And I think it's really, really important to have that mentor. You know, I've been lucky to have multiple ones, but, you know, it really is that it's a great place to sort of go back and strip totally down and be vulnerable in front of and go, okay, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? And then them to be like, like truthfully what it is. And sometimes you've got to face some hard facts and be like, you are being this. That's tough. But other times, you know, they'll be like, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself? This is great. And sometimes you just need that person to tell you that.
Yeah, so good.
Because we all put so much pressure on ourselves.
We do.
As a society. You know, we always think we're only as good as our last thing. You know, oh, I've got to impress this person. I've got to do this. And I'm only as good as my last interview. It's not. You're not. And if you believe in that and then people are going to have that expectation. You know, it's like that whole saying of like, start as you intend to continue. If you start full of confidence and knowing your self-worth and knowing what you bring to the table, then you'll continue to do that. If you come in and you are vulnerable and you question yourself and you don't, then you're going to continue to do that. So start as you intend to continue.
That is
my best advice.
Saying. I haven't heard of that one.
It's not mine. My boss gave it to me. But it's a good one, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly.
No worries. Thank you. Sorry about the child singing Frozen.
No, not at all. Thank you.
All right. See you.